There we go. Okay, everybody. Um, for those of us who are in the Zoom right now, it's August 21st. But for those of you watching this, it's actually August 26th.
Like
So,
time
woo,
travel.
we're doing some time travel. But we're doing this the first time we've ever recorded. But it's because for those of you that are used to watching us, you know why. Amanda and I are going to be gone and not back live until September 9th. But and we're going to miss September 2nd, which is Labor Day. The first time in all of tea time that we're actually missing. I'm
I
just like,
know. It had
I'm
to
I
happen.
I'm trying to think. It's like I'm depends on what happens because my grandkids will be here, and if I've got like a second, I might pop on.
Then you
Just
can
like
say you haven't
then I
missed.
can say we didn't miss
Right.
because I can come on and I'll come on and tell you what they're reading.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what the grandkids are reading.
that would actually be great.
That would be.
I'll take pictures of them. It's like, come tell them what you're reading. All right. So with that, we've got so we'll just jump right into it because we don't have to wait for anybody to come live with us. So we're just gonna jump right in. So it'll go Julia, Tom, Liz, and Andrea. I think I've got the share screen on if you need it. So Julia, take it away.
Okay, so I am doing my first books of the fall season. So I've got some big boys coming up and actually
exciting.
mostly big girls, but the big ones coming up. So my first one is Mad Woman by Chelsea Beaker. This is a big one for us.
Yeah, she's good.
She's good.
Godshot was really good.
Godshot, I loved. I used to host a feminist book club and we read Godshot there. And I just absolutely loved her writing. And so when this came to Hachette, I was like, oh, hell yes. and, and so this book, it deals with some heavy topics, definitely, but you're in such good hands with Chelsea Beaker that I think it's so worth reading, and really is about this woman who, I mean, she's struggling, and it takes place at first in the Central Valley of California, a bit in Hawaii and then in Oregon. And it takes, sorry, I just did something in my hair. And then it takes place. Chelsea Beaker came and talked to us when we first got this novel, and she really told us this amazing story of thinking about her mom. And it's somewhat autobiographical, though not a true story. It's somewhat about when she started thinking about her mom and sort of the childhood she had where her mom was really not that present. And started thinking about, and her mom was a pretty severe alcoholic. And what she realized as she grew up is that her mom's alcoholism was fueled a lot by domestic violence, and the domestic violence that her mother suffered. And so she sort of, I think she does this in Godshot and she does this so well in Mad Woman. What she does is she takes these sort of flawed, very, these women that have some deep, deep problems, and she gives them so much humanity and really digs into those issues. She digs into those characters. And this book is really about a woman who is struggling, who is deeply struggling with alcoholism, struggling with addiction, and sort of why those things are happening to her. There's some hope in it as well, but it is such a deep character study and such a deep, just well-written novel. It was hard to put it down when I had to. And I just think I can't wait for other people to read it. I know a lot of booksellers have read it and loved it. And so, yeah, it comes out, whatever the Tuesday after Labor Day. So
September 3rd.
September 3rd.
Yep. Yeah. And this is an indie next pick. It's got a starred review from Booklist. People are just raving about it already. And so Mad Woman by Chelsea Beaker.
I was just going to ask you to repeat the title. So it's Mad Woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I sold her first book, Godshot, when
was that a catapult? Was that a catapult?
Yeah, that was a catapult book, and that's now distributed by Penguin.
It is.
She's a star. She
Truly.
is an up and comer, so keep an eye out for her. And
Yep.
this is a great cover too. I think that people are just, you
It's a
know,
really good cover.
yeah, that people are gonna walk into a store and go, "What's this?" and then take it home.
Yep.
So
Okay, I just thought of something too, since we're not live. Amanda's not able to put the books in the chat. So she's going to do the e-blast the next day. So if you're not on our email list, make sure you get on our email list, because every Tuesday we send a recap of this with what all the books are and can quick link. But if I have time, I'll try and remember to go onto YouTube and put the links for these books into the YouTube link. But get on our email list. That's the easiest way to get them. And the next day they're all right there for you. So
That's great.
yeah.
well,
All right.
you guys have a great like email, like your news, like everything that you send out is very helpful, and it's not an onslaught. You know, it's a perfect amount for people who want to know what's going on at Warwick. So
We try really hard to keep it
yeah,
succinct.
it's very professional,
Thank you.
and people should sign up for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So there you go. Okay, Tom, what do you got? Oh, are we we're sharing? Tom
We're
is
sharing.
Tom, I don't know if I'm going to get used to this.
I know. Did I share?
You did. We see it.
Okay. So like Julia, it's nothing but bangers today. Fall is starting, and it's going to be here before we know it. So this first book, Julie knows, I've been thinking about this book for at least 9 months. I think I read it that long ago. So Danzy sent us colored television, pre-order it, coming September 3rd, that same day. And Warwick's will have signed copies. So if you don't know Danzy Senna, you will after we publish this book. So we've been publishing her since the late 90s. And it's just it is so satisfying when a publisher sticks with an author, an author sticks with a publisher, and the books get amazing reviews, but maybe don't always achieve the commercial success that you'd hope for, but you know it's going to come. And I think it's going to happen when we publish colored television in September. So Danzy is she's a fantastic writer. And so this is her LA, I would call this her LA novel. She's been writing New York, like New York was the setting, the East Coast was the setting of the previous books. This is her big LA novel. So it's about a writer named Jane, very much like Danzy, who's been a writer at midlife, I would say, who's struggling to live as an artist in Los Angeles, where it's so precarious. She and her husband, an artist husband, their children, they are trying to figure out how to make ends meet. She's got a big novel that she's been working on for 10 years, and her husband calls it, her husband Lenny calls it the Mulatto War and Peace. So she's got all of her hopes ready for that book. That's going to change their lives. Well, things don't quite work out that way. She's also teaching at a university, also not working out the way she planned. And then she gets, this is very typical for an LA novel. She and her husband are house sitting in a very well-to-do writer's house, and they're drinking the writer's wine, they're enjoying themselves, living it up, basically. And she gets drawn into the world of television. So the novelist drawn into the world of streaming content, and there's a writer a TV writer who's found her, who's looking for, quote, diverse content. Things go badly and hilariously from there. He's trying to create with her the greatest biracial comedy ever to hit the small screen. Things go really wrong after that. So what I would like to say about this book is, yes, it's about Hollywood, but it's a great family novel. Marriage, she's really good at depicting this marriage of two creative people trying to make it work. It's sharp, satiric, funny, above all funny. I mean, it's rare that you read such a great novel that is also this hilarious. And she's been a writer's writer, as I say, for decades, and it's exciting to have this finally happen for her. And personally, so she lives in South Pasadena, as do I, a suburb of Los Angeles. And so it was so much fun to read this book because South Pasadena plays a role in the book, but it's called The Multicultural Mayberry, which
That's
is
what
both,
I was hoping you were gonna. 'Cause
which
I was
is
like, I
both
couldn't
which is
remember.
both a compliment and a deep skewering of South Pass. So for anybody, you don't have to live here to enjoy it, certainly, but there were lots of Easter eggs for me that I was like, oh yeah, I know that place, I know that place. And as uh, the book, it's an Indie Next Picks. Booksellers are raving about it. I think she, more than most books, I feel like she stuck the landing too. It's powerful, funny, everything a great book should be. And I think the reviews are gonna be amazing. And I just think it's her time this fall. It's gonna be Danzy's season. So we have amazing quotes from a wide variety of writers. Miranda July, who's hit it big this summer with All Fours. I couldn't stop turning the pages, and only when it was all over did I realize what Senna had done. Addictive, hilarious, and relatable, yes, but color television is after something larger and more elusive, a very modern reckoning with the ambiguities triangulated by race, class, creativity, and love. And then James Hannaham, who, Julie, I know you've read.
Love him.
He has this is the best quote, I think. If you thought California was burning before, wait until you read how literary arsonist Danzy Senna gleefully incinerates its values through the eyes of Jane Gibson, a heroine whose insecurity, mistakes, and lies will keep you riveted from start to finish. Kirk has called it almost a perfect book. So
Wow.
it is Danzy Senna's colored television, coming September 3rd. It's going to be great.
I mean, this sounds like, oh, go ahead, you go.
No, you go, Adrian.
Well, it just sounds like this is gonna go nuts,
I
and
think so, yeah.
and like, has somebody already bought the rights to do like a
I don't
limited
know.
series or something?
Oh,
Because
they have to.
I mean, just from
it's
your
just set up for like a platter.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, just from your description alone, like the imagery, and I can just see this like just being like, you know, I mean, Hollywood's going to jump on it.
We'd all watch it, yeah, for
Oh yeah,
sure.
no, and so I had the privilege of sitting next to her at a Winter Institute dinner,
Oh, that's
and
right.
she's hilarious. Okay,
Yes.
she was
Yes.
probably one of the funniest authors that I mean, we were literally belly laughing the entire time that we sat next to each other at dinner.
That's
I
great.
mean,
Yeah,
if
you
nothing
can't-
else, read it because she's fun.
You can't be with her and not end up on the floor.
Oh, for sure. She just is. She's really funny. And this book, it's like Jane, the main character. I mean, the whole time she's doing stuff, and you're going, no,
right.
Jane, what are you doing, Jane?
Don't do that. Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Sounds a tad autobiographical, a marriage of writers, and
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
Definitely. I don't
someone
yeah, I
behind
don't know how
you.
much to lean into that, but definitely feels
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I would be
mean,
so curious if she has experiences writing for television, but I don't know.
the thing is that's so great about this too, is that our loyal followers here, Warwick's you know, super readers are
They are
gonna
super readers.
first. They're gonna have it, they're gonna get it well before any of the
That's right.
you know,
Our-
reviews are coming out. So
Our
Absolutely.
tagline, you heard it here first, right?
Yes, and especially now, especially with this particular tea time, we're
yeah,
You really
Yeah.
heard it here first.
yeah.
All right, Liz, what do you got?
Oh my gosh, did I miss the memo that summer's over?
No,
No,
not at
no,
all.
it's
Still
not
have a
over.
month of summer, so I want to
know.
talk about some really great books that are available now at Warwick's. And so here we go with Someone Like Us. So I think this writer is due for his big breakout. Tom knows him.
Seeing a
just-
lot on this book.
You got a lot of this book?
No, I've seen a lot. If this one's popping
Yeah.
up everywhere.
I know. And you'll see on the cover of the New York Times Book Review come Sunday, Rebecca Mackay's glowing review. I'll just tease that here. She says, Someone Like Us is the book that ought to cement Mengistu's reputation as a major literary force. So he's a really impressive author. He's a journalist. He's covered Darfur, Uganda, the Congo for the New York Times and Rolling Stone and the New Yorker. And he's the recipient of a MacArthur Genius, I guess we don't call it that anymore, a MacArthur Grant, a Lannan Fellowship, and his debut, which was the way I discovered him, was The Beautiful Things That Heaven Bears. And that won the LA Times Book Prize for First Fiction. And that portrayed an Ethiopian immigrant with the themes of displacement, cultural identity, community, and of course, the American dream. These themes continue in Someone Like Us. It's his fourth novel. And here, the son of Ethiopian immigrants uncovers his family's past. It's got loss, it's got addiction, and this emotional pull towards home. And the author himself immigrated with his parents to Washington, D.C. when he was 2 years old. So definite strains of his own autobiography. So the novel begins with Mamouche, who's a former journalist, like our author, who's a current journalist, and he's looking for a new life in Paris. He meets Hannah, a photographer, who they just fall in love, but 5 years later, their marriage is in crisis. And he decides to return to the close-knit immigrant Ethiopian community of Washington, D.C. That really defined his childhood. So at the center of this family is Mamouche's stoic mother, and also his stepfather, Samuel, who's a larger-than-life father figure, with charming and humorous, but that's always covered up for a more troubling truth underneath. So the same day that Mamouche arrives in DC, Samuel's found dead in his garage. So this is also a quest to find out what happened to Samuel and to uncover these family secrets. So Mamouche travels across America in search of answers to these questions he's been told never to ask. And he begins really to understand that he has a chance of saving his family, his marriage, and all of that. So it's a really striking novel. The threads throughout all of his fiction kind of come to the fore here, and I think it's going to sell really well, and it's available now at Warwick's.
Yeah,
I loved his first two novels. I
Yeah.
haven't read the last two, but wow.
let me see if I can. There we go. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it's like popped up a couple times, like from different things. So I'm seeing this a lot of places.
There's a percolation of
Yeah.
this book.
Yeah, definitely is. So I think it's going to be one that people are going to be talking about. Sounds like a really good book club book too.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrea, what do you have for us?
I want to talk about a book that is
Okay,
published
can we stop for a second and just talk about this cover for half a second?
yeah.
Oh my God, great cover.
Fantastic, with a Lauren Groff quote.
That's the cover alone is fantastic.
Yeah, Grove Press.
I love that Grove.
Going to the mat real hard on this one. So this book comes out September 10th, and it's one of the big novels on the fall list for us. Two Step Devil by J.B. Quattro. She was the author of Fire, Sermons, and an earlier collection of stories. I want to show you more. And she was a New York Times notable book, a writer of great originality, the New York Times said when she was new on the scene. And this is just a bold departure for her about love, faith, and two outsiders in the contemporary South whose lives converge in fortuitous ways. One is an elderly eccentric who thinks he's a modern day prophet, and he saves our second protagonist. In a landfill, he notices a young woman trying to get away from her captors as she's going to be sold into sex trafficking. And so this is a pretty gritty setup. It's set in Arkansas and Tennessee. It's her most ambitious and intricately plotted book to date. And she her themes before were sex and infidelity. So she pivots from there. And she really like takes a tender look at the dynamics between these two people that are thrown together after the prophet saves the young woman. And it's just so beautifully done. Quattro's, she's brilliant. My equally brilliant colleague, Christina Rodriguez, our newest rep, based out of Texas, who sells the entire Southeast, who was a judge for the National Book Award in translated literature, has this to say about this book. And this blurb, could be a professional reviewer's blurb here. So I always hate to overuse she's a singular voice, but Jamie really is a singular voice. A key selling point that resonated with a lot of booksellers, that outside of Flannery O'Connor, there are not many contemporary women writing the South in this way. That finds a nuance. I'm sorry, I can't read right now. That finds a nuanced way to use violence and necessary evil as a path towards grace. I love the language and aesthetics in the book. It has this almost dark cinematic quality to it, similar to TV shows like The Sinner and True Detective. I've been saying that it's basically sexy swamp vibes. And there's going to be like a million more reviews coming out as this comes through. Laura Groff on the cover says a writer of sinuous muscular power and grace. Jamie Quattro comes to Grove by way of executive editor Elizabeth Schmitz, who brought us such amazing modern classics as Cold Mountain. She's got an eye. We trust her. She doesn't mess around. And so this is Two Step Devil. It will be in stores like early September with a pub date of September 10th. And there's a nice stack at Warwick's that will be on its way soon.
Love it. That's definitely one to mark and read.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that sort of storytelling set in the South, this like.
Well, and I love me some dark books like James Callahan.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
And I Gabino. I mean, it's
with all of the the idiosyncrasies of Southern characters on top of it, so it's got a lot going for it, and we think it's going to get some amazing reviews around pub date. So
awesome.
And I would trust Christina Rodriguez with my life for book recommendations. She knows what she talks about.
Yeah, Christina has worked for publishers.
She needs to start a newsletter.
Yeah, and she really is brilliant and just one of our revered young colleagues. So
all right, Julia, take it away on round two.
Okay, round two. So this is a big one. Guide Me Home by Attica Locke. This is huge. The third book in the Highway 59 series. The first was Bluebird. The second was Heaven My Home. And now Guide Me Home. This is the final book in this series. And Attica Locke, it's been a long time coming because Attica Locke has been busy having an extremely successful television career. And so she wrote for the TV shows based on the Celeste Ng, Little Fires Everywhere. She's written for a bunch of different extremely well-received TV shows. And so this one sort of got pushed back a little bit because of her busy schedule. And now it is here. Guide Me Home. James from Warwick's is a
I was gonna say.
huge fan. Yes. Literally, like, I think knew that I was getting a galley before it showed up at my apartment. Literally was like, Julia, I see other people have galleys. Where's my galley? And I was like, I don't even have one. Okay.
It's like, dude,
So
calm down.
he knows. Yeah, he knew. And he loved this one. He loves her. So this is a black sheriff or a black Texas Ranger, I'm sorry, who Darren Matthews, who solves crimes in a it's a crime novel. And I think, Attica Locke is a black woman. She grew up in Texas. And so having her sort of eye on this and on this kind of story, it takes the crime novel, it takes the detective novel and sort of like does something so specific with it. And I think all of her books really do this. She just weaves these beautiful tales in these sort of traditional crime or detective novels. She's so good. This book is so good. And I think anyone who, if you haven't read the Highway 59 series, maybe now is a good time to start on Bluebird and get to Heaven My Home, but get to Guide Me Home. But if you have read through Heaven My Home and are excited to see how this all wraps up, then here's the third and final one of this series. So
yeah, I was gonna say that's the fun part. If you haven't read her before, there's stuff to read before. So
yeah,
it's good. She's so good. Yeah, James, I was cracking up because James was just so excited.
Yeah. Truly.
Oh, I always love that when a bookseller gets excited about
I mean,
stuff.
it's what a dream, as all of these reps will tell you, when a bookseller knows that the galleys are in someone's hand before you have a galley in your own hand. You're like, okay, well,
okay, here you go.
Makes my job easy.
Exactly.
I wish it happened more often.
All right, Tom, round two.
Okay.
Oh, you're getting quite proficient at this, my friend.
Let's see. Can you see?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. I am getting proficient. Thank you, Julie. Well, as I said, nothing but bangers. So this is I'd say our biggest book of the year.
Yep.
Coming out on September 3rd also. So Matt Haig, beloved Viking author, who went to the stratosphere with his last book, The Midnight Library, which has sold 2.5 million copies in the US, 9 million worldwide.
Wow.
So how do you follow that up? And I'm glad he followed it up with the kind of novel that his fans are going to love. I mean, it's vintage Matt Haig. All of those readers are going to love this book. So The Life Impossible is about Grace Winters, who's a math teacher, very much with a math teacher's mind, who is left, a friend of hers has disappeared on the island of Ibiza, and she's been left this rundown house, and she goes to the island, which is very much out of character for her because she likes things in order. She's that math teacher. And she goes to the island with a one-way ticket, no guidebook, no plan, and looking for answers to what happened to her friend. But what she uncovers is so much more. So I don't really want to give away too much because there are big surprises here. But it's everything you want from a Matt Haig. It's there's a sense of wonder and adventure, hope, always hope with him. I mean, Matt as a writer and a person wears his emotions on his sleeves, and so that you want that in a Matt Haig novel. But it's the life-changing power of new beginnings, and also opening yourself up to magic and wonder when you're a person of a certain age who has never done that before. So it's feel good, the relatable characters that you want from him, with a touch of magic and fantasy, which is always part of his world. So it's going to be great, fantastic. So September 3rd, The Guardian, I think it's being published all over the world on the same day. So it probably hasn't been published in the UK yet, but The Guardian ran their review and they say Haig's wise and moving novel is both a mystery and a love story. Perhaps its greatest gift lies in showing us that it's possible to dismantle the boundaries we have built, grasp the connections previously hidden, and appreciate life in all of its richness. So I think now more than ever, but maybe always, we need that. We need that.
He is, and he's just the nicest guy.
He
He
is.
truly is the nicest guy. And not a bad blurb on the cover of that thing from Benedict Cumberbatch.
I know, it's true. I know. He's just since the success of, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but they gave us a list of all of his celebrity friends, and yeah, including Benedict Cumberbatch.
I kind of love that a little bit.
Well, wasn't the Midnight Library going to be a film? Wait,
I think so. It's
Yeah.
definitely going to be, or it's, you
Yeah.
know, but it's one of those things where
maybe Benedict is involved.
Yeah, I
Maybe
bet.
he-
I bet.
TikTok, maybe he is.
So
So,
speaking,
and Warwick's will have signed copies
Okay.
on sale date, so get them while you can.
They will go fast.
I was just going to say that he totally wears his heart on his sleeve, and I love, and it's one of my favorite books to give, The Comfort Book,
Oh
which
yeah.
he wrote. It's so great.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
He's good.
he's so honest about his own struggles and
yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
very great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Liz.
And
Okay.
Lynn, Liz,
Yes.
that's Ben to his friends. Benedict is, they call him Ben.
Oh, Ben. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's
So
gotta
like
be
I'm
Ben.
sure in Matt's electronic Rolodex, Cumberbatch is like filed under Ben.
probably so. Well, we published a book a few years ago. I forget, it was a humor book, but I guess fans of Ben
Yes.
called Cumber Bitches.
yes.
The Cumberbitches.
Umber
Yeah.
bitches.
Yeah.
I learned that.
Gosh.
Oh
They
yeah.
were,
Come from Quirk.
I mean, they've both been published with Canongate, one of my publishers
Oh,
in the UK. I mean, and they did like the letters of note thing they read, and I think that's how they got hooked up. And so that makes
Oh.
sense that, you
No,
gotta, connections are real. You have to make the connections still.
So true. So true. Okay, Liz.
Okay, this is my favorite book of the summer, Mina's Matchbox. I don't know if any of you have heard of it yet. It's got kind of a quiet presence right now, but it's starting to build. It's by Yoko Agawa. She wrote The Memory Police. It's in translation. She has won every literary award in Japan. And this translation's great. It's a total gem. It's told in first person, the perspective of our 12-year-old Tomoko. And it's really at the heart of it. It's a book about the friendship between Tomoko and her cousin Mina. So it opens in the spring of 1972. And Tomoko has left her mother behind in Tokyo because her mom wants to make more money and is going back to school to become a dressmaker. And so Tomoko's aunt, so Tomoko goes on a train by herself to live with her aunt and her aunt's affluent family for a year. And the aunt is really an outlier in this working class family because she has married into a family of, they're like a soda, soft drink tycoons. And their soft drink is similar to Fresca is what it sounds like to me. Anyway, so she arrives on the train at the seashore town in Japan. Her uncle picks her up in his Mercedes, and she's just in awe of the mansion, the 17-room mansion, the sprawling gardens. It actually is there's so much magic in this story too, not like literal magic, but just this magical setting. So sprawling gardens, and it was a former zoo. So there's actually a pygmy hippopotamus named Pochoko, I think is, as I remember correctly, who takes Mina to school on his back. And anyway, it's really fanciful. But this family is beguiling, yet they have their undercurrent. So Mina's world, she's asthmatic, and she has these episodes where she has to be taken to the hospital in the middle of the night. The father, Tomoko's uncle, it goes away for long stretches of time, and it's unclear where he is. And so there's all of these secrets. The aunt is a heavy drinker. She locks herself up in a room every night where she, I love this, proofreads things. Like that's her game. She just loves finding typos. And anyway, this is just a snapshot in this family, a year in the life of this family. And Mina's Matchbox is actually her Matchbox collection. And she writes, I guess in Japan, the Matchboxes, I mean, here it's like you get a Matchbox and it's just an advertisement. But these Matchboxes at this era had these illustrations, these sort of fantastical illustrations. And she has a guy who comes and delivers them with like their groceries, and he always brings her a Matchbox, and then she writes stories in the Matchbox about the picture. It's just this full of surprises. I mean, they get passionate about volleyball at the Munich Olympics. There's just so many cool things, but it's threaded together just beautifully. Kind of reminds me of reading The Secret Garden, because Mina's asthmatic and Colin is sickly too, and it's from the perspective of these young girls. I do think it could be a great YA crossover read. Ruth Ozeki just gave it a great review. She says Yoko Ogawa is a quiet wizard, casting her words like a spell, conjuring a world of curiosity and enchantment, secrets and loss. I read Mina's Matchbox like a besotted child, enraptured, never wanting it to end. So that's the book, and it's special.
I love it. It's another great cover. Another really good cover. Sounds like a great book.
It
It
is like,
does.
remember Balzac and the Chinese seamstress, like
Yeah.
those gems. This is that kind of book.
Yeah, exactly.
And very different. If I remember the memory, what was it called? The memory.
Memory Police, which I didn't read, but I hear it does really well. But this is hearing everybody talk about it, it's quite a different story.
Okay, Andrea.
Well, I'm going to go to a nonfiction title of note that is publishing it on September 10th as well. This is called Stolen Pride, Lost Shame and the Rise of the Right by the bestseller Arlie Russell Hochschild, who wrote a New York Times bestseller called Strangers in Their Own Land. And so you may remember that book from a few years ago. And this is her look at Appalachia, excuse me, uncovering the quote unquote pride paradox that has given the MAGA movement it's like it appeals to folks there and given that such political resonance. So basically Hochschild has is an academic by trade and wants to understand what's going on. And so she breaks down what has happened there by basically just talking to everybody. Long conversations over 6 years with mayors, felons, clerks, shopkeepers, teachers, ex-coal miners out of jobs, recovering addicts, you name it, runs the gamut, and really just movingly introduces the reader to real people living in a extremely poor and isolated part of the country, in a county in Kentucky that they feel like they've been forgotten. But this is a little bit different than the New York Times going to a diner in the middle of a red county and getting their take. I mean, it's just talking about people's shattered lives and what they want from the country and their political leaders, and it shows how they have been radicalized by the appeal of angry populist rhetoric. And Hochschild is definitely considered an expert and has been called on already to talk about JD Vance and why he would be on the ticket. There was an op-ed already by her in the Wall Street Journal, and the list of reviews and interviews that Arlie is going to be doing. It's like, you know, like you have to scroll down on your email. You can't see it in one page, okay? Because she's going to be everywhere, especially as we move towards pub date and the election. I think that this is going to hit the bestsellers list again, just like her last one did. She's this is what Hillbilly Elegy wanted to be, really, in many ways.
You said it out loud. I love it.
I did. And because it's the real deal, talking about people like, you know, people who feel, you know, like they the American dream has passed them by, and you know, wanting something better for their families, and not being offered that by basically both parties in many ways.
Right. Sounds
and
really good.
Yeah, it's an important book. It's an important document, and she's going to be everywhere. So keep an eye out for this. And if anybody's interested in the subject, this is for the academic in your life, that would be appealing. But anybody who's interested in where we are societally right now, it's a book to keep on your radar.
She is a classic. I mean, way back in my very early days, Viking published The Second Shift. So she's been chronicling America, changes in America and Americans for decades.
Yeah,
So,
in a compassionate way. I mean, she's got like an academic eye, but she doesn't leave the people behind. It's not, you know, it's not about statistics. It's about people's lived lives. So
yeah,
It's funny, Andrea, when that first came up, Leslie Jobson, who people might not know as Andrea's boss,
supervisor,
yeah, supervisor, yeah,
and friend.
handed me that book at a Kaliba event in 2016, right before it came out, and this is Strangers in Their Own Land. The sort of I would look at these as sort of a duo, but like and I remember it came out September 2016. So yeah, bring yourself back there, but not for too long or you'll want to die. But like, so I remember that coming out, and when her name popped up, when you brought this up, I thought, you know, Strangers in Their Own Land is the book that Hillbilly Elegy thinks that it is. And it sounds like this is even more that. So I can't wait to read it. I mean, I remember reading that in September of 2016, and it was the first time I thought, oh no, I think we actually might be in real trouble. And so I can't wait to read this one. You know, she is a stunningly good writer, and she's academic, but she's readable. I mean, you know, I grew up with academics, and sometimes it's hard to get through any of that. But she is very readable.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let me just read you like one of the quotes here. Arlie Russell Hochschild's Stolen Pride is a masterpiece of epic proportions. Her account of a small struggling Appalachian community's response to a parade of out-of-state white nationalists provides a glimmer of hope for our fragile democracy, even in the face of political polarization, economic inequality, racism, and the non-rational emotional dimensions of political identity and mobilization. My advice to everyone is read this book. So there you go.
Yeah. It's a must read.
Yeah.
Okay, no, Julia. Sorry. I was looking the wrong direction. Almost skipped you, Julia.
That's okay. I'm skippable.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
I was
Okay.
reaching for the share button all of a sudden.
I know.
Sorry,
all of a
that's-
sudden, I saw your hand go. I was like, hold on a minute.
Okay, so my third book is a book called Hope for Cynics: The Surprising Science of Human Goodness. And this one it's a book that, I don't know if you guys have this in your sales conferences. We have like a a list of books that they ask us to read before we even go into sales conference. And this was one of them. And literally every single person in our sales conference, their their reaction was, this is not a book I'd normally read, and I needed it more than I really understood that I did. And so I think it's like, it's kind of a self-help book, but not really. So like, I'm not a person who particularly likes self-help books, and that is no shade to anyone who does. I just, that's not my thing. But this book really is like, it really will give you hope for humanity. And I think, you know, I mean, I hope that a lot of us are feeling that right now, but I think that maybe we could use a bit more. And so, you know, this book really does like sort of just break down why you should be hopeful for us, you know, sort of dealing with some of the bigger issues that we have as humans right now. And it breaks down cynicism and like why people are cynical, but then actually like why you shouldn't be, and why and how you can sort of help turn that thinking around. And it does it in a way that even I was receptive to. An extremely cynical person was like, okay, fine. All right. I guess I'll feel a bit of hope. So again, you know, this one had a Kirkus starred review and was a shelf awareness pick. We've been getting some great feedback on it. And you know, we have blurbs from Angela Duckworth and Adam Grant and all the folks that you would hope would blurb. Adam Grant called this a ray of light for dark days. So, you know, I think it's one that I normally kind of wouldn't bring a book like this to Tea Time and to Warwick's audience, because I feel like, you know, you guys kind of the audience kind of knows what they like in this genre. But this one is one that even if you don't like this genre, it might be worth digging into. It might give you a bit of hope and a bit of happiness.
I was gonna say, Julie, we all need it. I was just gonna say, Julia, will there be one on my front porch?
Yeah, do you need it? I'll send you one.
Yeah, I think that this is a very timely publication, Julia. It's a perfect time to publish a book like this. And, you know, cynicism shuts people down.
It does.
You know, and I think that this, you're right, it transcends like a self-help readership for sure. I mean,
I love it.
I mean, I know, like, I can't even count like on two hands how many people I could give this book to.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I love it. Okay, Tom, what's your third book today?
Okay, so I will be banging the drum for Roddy Doyle
Okay. Oh.
for the rest of my days.
Yep.
So the new book is Roddy Doyle's The Women Behind the Door. So this is the third book about Paula Spencer. So in 1996, he published The Woman Who Walked Into Doors, which is about Paula and her husband and family. Then a decade or a little bit more later, he published Paula Spencer, wrote Paula Spencer. And now he's revisiting the character in 2021. So, and you do not have to have read the first two. I probably read one of them, but I had forgotten a lot. So you can and should read this, you know, on its own. But we find Paula Spencer at 66. Finally, she's a mother, she's a grandmother, a widow, a recovering addict, a survivor who is finally starting to live her life. Despite all the ghosts in the house that she's living in, despite now we're in the middle of COVID. It begins with her getting her COVID shot. But she feels like she's finally getting to the place that she deserves to get to. When her grown daughter with a family, a husband and a family, knocks on her door and comes to live with her, basically escaping some of the same things that Paula experienced with Nicola, the daughter's father. So it's a portrait of shame and the shadow it casts over families. it's just beautiful. I mean, and he captures that voice of Paula Spencer, and he says that in interviews he's done in the run up to the book, he talks about how characters don't stick with him. Like he's not thinking about most of the characters he's written about, but she keeps coming back to him. And when he got his COVID shot in 2021, his first thought was he was feeling hope. He was feeling, speaking of hope, and he was thinking, what would Paula Spencer be feeling right now? And so that set him on the way to writing the book. Now, Roddy Doyle, he's won 2 Booker Prizes, 2.
Wow.
So he's fantastic. I just hope more people discover him, and any place you start is a great place, but
Yep.
why not start with the brand new books? That's coming September 10th. The reviews are going to be incredible, as they always are. But he really is it's a masterful novel. We all love, and it's a portrait of Dublin that you'll never forget. Dublin during the pandemic. And it's a rare book that I want to go back to that period of time, but I happily went back. In a way, it's like what Elizabeth Strout is doing in her books with Olive Kitteridge. That's what he's doing with Paula Spencer.
Okay. Yeah. He is a master. He's so good.
So good. And fun and funny too.
And
I mean,
funny.
dark, funny.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Really good.
I know
Okay,
this
Liz.
isn't. Oh, I
Go
know
ahead.
this isn't this book I was going to say, but I just recently rewatched The Commitments, which is a book
Oh, yeah.
based on a book by Roddy Doyle,
Right.
and
Yes.
can't recommend highly enough. God, what a great
I
movie.
should revisit that. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen
It
that.
has been a long time, and it would be a good one to go back to. Okay, Liz.
Okay, so I want to talk about poetry. This book went on sale last week. Knopf has an amazing poetry catalog. I just want to remind everybody that our poetry editors are poets themselves. Dan Halpern. We've got John Freeman, Deborah Garrison, and Cynthia Zarin. This is her really new and selected poems. She has a lot of new poems in this. They're gorgeous. She won the Los Angeles Book Prize for poetry. She's also written a lot for children, and also an acclaimed novel that came out earlier this year, Inverno. So this begins with several dozen new poems that have been in the New Yorker and other publications, but it's really a tour through her 5 exquisite collections. So she's a poet in the line of Elizabeth Bishop. She writes, if you miss lyrical poetry, if you miss even some poems that rhyme, but her inspiration is really the clarity of childhood memories, marriage, divorce, her own consciousness. It goes from New York to Cape Cod to Rome, and the subject matter is really all the phases of a woman's life, with passion being the foremost theme. The gorgeous cover is a painting by her daughter Rose, and if you'll indulge me, I know we're running against the clock here, but just a very quick poem from it, dedicated to her daughter, called Song. My heart, my dove, my snail, my sail, my milk tooth, shadow, sparrow, fingernail, flower cat and blossom hedge, mandrake root now put to bed, moonshell, sea swell, manatee, emerald shining back at me, nutmeg, quince, tea leaf and bone, zither, cymbal, xylophone, paper, scissors, then there's stone. Who doesn't come through the door to get home? Just think it's so sweet.
So sweet.
That's the book.
That's a good one.
Beautiful cover.
Really
Yeah.
good cover.
Great
Okay,
painting.
let me do that. I know, always good to have a poem. All right, Andrea, take us home.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to talk about Where the Forest Meets the River. This is a Europa Editions trade paperback original. And that's a September 3rd publication. It has recently been named to the Indie Next list. So indie booksellers across the land find favor in these pages. I'm going to read a quote to explain what this book is about so that we can, that you all can get on your evening. And this is from Gail Shanks, the owner of Changing Hands. who loved the first book by Shannon Bowring called The Road to Dalton. Like Elizabeth Strout, Shannon Bowring writes about a small town in Maine where everyday events and significant dramas play out in a concentrated form when fewer people witness and make judgments about them. The people who we meet in Bowring's first novel, The Road to Dalton, are 5 years older here, but the death by suicide of one of their own still dominates their interactions, their psyches, and their ability to move on. This novel is beautifully written, layered with emotion, and told from multiple perspectives. It's filled with birds, flowers, trees, gardens, joys, sorrows, wisdom, and warmth, set in a time before cell phones and when libraries still had card catalogs. It's about the universality of people's experiences, jealousy, loss, aging, loving, and our need for connections and acceptance. So there you go. That explains it really well. And that's all you need to know. A beautiful book and a rare book by a North American author, not in translation from Europa. This is in the original English.
Oh, it's interesting. It reminds me a little bit, and maybe it was just the cover, and I can't think of the author's name or the title of the book, but it was a Godine. It was a Godine book.
Oh yes.
It has a blue cover.
Yes.
Yes.
Damn it.
Oh no.
Here we
Okay,
go.
yeah, I should know that.
I know, me too, because I
Yeah.
loved that book, and we hosted her for for all of you, I'll figure out what it is, and I'll tell you when we're back here live if I remember.
Yeah,
My brain
I'll have to
remembers.
dig through, but I know what you're talking
You know who
about.
I'm talking about, and it kind of the storyline a little bit. Yeah. But that was a
Similar
such a
audience too, a similar readership for
similar
sure.
readership. So I will have to remember that. I'll make a little note here if I save these notes here. So okay, everybody, thank you for watching our recording. And like I said, if you're not on our email list, it's a great way to get this recap in digital form, print form, whatever you want to call it, of what all these great books are. Such good stuff coming. Such good stuff.
Fall is going to be amazing.
Fall's going to be, I was a little worried that it was going to be a little light, because usually election years, they kind of like shove everything around and they don't really get it, but there's some good stuff. So
I think we all just ignored it this year and
Yeah.
said we're
And just
putting out
said,
books.
just put out, which is just what needs to happen. We need the diversion. Okay, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Okay, now let me see.